Resolve to Read. I am here with Michael, and we're going to talk about this week's readings, which happened mostly in, I believe, the book of Numbers. And we're following Israel now as they're leaving Egypt and they're trying to find the promised land, though a little unsuccessfully at the moment. And today in class, we talked a little bit about Israel's mishaps. And Michael, you had some interesting comments about Israel's rather lack of faith in what they're doing. Let's think about, they start doubting right away about their food. And they say, we want meat, we want meat, we want meat. And God gets so angry with them that he actually he says this like the meat's coming out of their noses. So I don't know what that means.
He said like they'll receive enough that it could happen like that. It didn't necessarily say that that is what actually happened. So they didn't even get a chance to eat it.
Yeah, there was just so much of it.
Yeah, they gathered a whole bunch of it, much more than they actually needed. And then as soon as they didn't even get to swallow it while it was still in their teeth, they just...
I think it says they didn't even feel satisfied. And so what happens here? You know, God's leading them from Egypt. They see God leading them, and yet their faith is so weak that they just can't tolerate what's happening to them. And that makes me wonder how important faith is, our faith to God. And we have more examples. We mentioned when they were crying out for water, and then even Moses, the one bright and shining star, and even here Moses, shows his lack of faith. And what was your thoughts on that, what he did?
The main stupid thing that he did was he brought attention to himself instead of giving attention where it was due. And that was a really stupid move in light of what they had just been through and what they were about to go through yet again, which is punishment for lack of faith. So the other question, how important is faith? It's absolutely essential, the most important thing in all of Scripture.
Right, and sometimes we think that the nation of Israel is all about obeying rules, but really what it boiled down to, we see in our readings that God was more interested in, are you going to trust me, or are you going to trust in yourselves? And unfortunately, this week, Israel trusted in themselves. Another good example here is this one hit home with me was Balaam. Well, that's a good story too. There's a lot of good stories, yeah.
Oh, that was awesome.
Well, tell us more about that one.
Well, first of all, Balaam, he was an enemy of the Hebrews, and he showed that later.
Okay.
But even though he was an enemy, he blessed Israel 3 times. And
Balak wasn't too happy about that, was he?
No. Because he was powerless to not bless Israel, because that's even using his sorcery, it didn't matter. He was still in contact with God and still had to obey God. Well, to that extent.
Right. And Balak, he couldn't see why Balaam would want to keep opening his mouth when he could have all these riches if he would just curse him. But every time he opened his mouth, there was a blessing. And that just shows the power of God, even in Balaam, who...
And then even with the oncoming assault, he knew that he was one of the people that were going to be attacked by the Israelites. Even then, he said, these people are special. These people are set apart. These people have a cause that is greater than even my people in my own life.
Right.
But then he still went to try to oppose the Israelites anyway.
Right. Well, and that brings me back to on February 9th, we read about where a group of men came up to Moses and Aaron, and they basically were jealous that God had chosen Moses and Aaron to be the priest, the high priest, and not them. And they said, well, what's so special about you? Why can't we do it too? There's nothing special about you. And that's where you really see God's anger towards that attitude. And I sometimes wonder in my own life, and I see other people in positions of leadership. It's like, well, I could do that. What's so special about you? But especially in this situation, the role of priest is so important. And because that's the person who approaches God and is able to stand in his presence. But what's neat, and we could sit here and maybe think, oh man, I wish that was me. But the good news is that it is us today. Because of the blood of Christ, we are now a royal priesthood. And we can stand before God, and we are God's chosen people. Like you said, Balaam saw these people, and he said, those are God's chosen people. And that's us now today. And that's the awesome part. And I just hope this week that you can find faith in your daily walk and the choices that you make. And thank you, Michael, for sharing with us. And we'll see you again next week.